your group to be sure that no one is left inside. Should you believe someone is missing, notify the security officers stationed in your area. Do not go back into the building for any reason until the fire service has given the all clear. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, and do enjoy your time with us.
Again, good morning. Thank you so much, Stacy. Yes, let me come on this side, of course.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen.
So it's a pleasure to be here with you again. Jason Williams is my name, and of course, I am glad to share the stage this year with Sharla, who is one of our esteemed media personalities, Star FM.
Oh, you're too kind.
Yes. So Sharla's first time. Let's give Sharla a nice welcome. Yes. And we will handle the proceedings this morning into the afternoon.
Now, at this time, we want to start off by acknowledging our kind sponsors, without whom today would not be possible. So our title sponsors, BP Trinidad and Tobago; gold sponsors, Scotiabank Trinidad and Tobago, E-Zone and Unicoma; silver sponsors, United Airlines, Pan American Life Insurance Group; and our bronze sponsors, ESAW, Oilfield Supplies Limited, Southern Sales Service Limited, and our kind media sponsor, Heartbeat Radio.
And the good thing is we are live, from what I understand, on TTT, so we acknowledge and we say hello to all our friends in TV world as we bring you this year's amazing conference, Women's Leadership Conference 2019, hosted by AMCHAM. Let me recognize the presence of Senator the Honorable Paula Gopi-Schoon, Minister of Trade and Industry. Let me recognize the presence of Ms. Tora Best, HBM, recipient of the Hummingbird Medal, as mentioned, retired principal, chair, Trinbago United Calypsonians Organization, TUCO, Junior Calypso Committee, and chair of the Youth Training and Empowerment Partnership Program. We acknowledge the presence of Lucio Medina Bolivar, country head, Inter-American Development Bank. Of course, Rupa Unikrishnan, head strategy human and author of the international bestseller, The Career Catapult. Susie Teal, head of marketing and communications, Advanced Robotics in Manufacturing Institute. And of course, Stephen Bannerall and all our amazing speakers who will come forward later on in the day. So seeing that the formalities are taken care of.
Let's just remind you for a second that the theme for this year's International Women's Day is #Balance for Better. We're keeping the hashtag going because I know we're using social media today. We're going to be posting a lot. And speaking of social media, we're going to do things a little bit differently today. Now, there is a website. If you were to pull out your smartphone right now, or your iPad or your laptop, and you type in slido.com, that's SLIDO.com, that is a website that will allow today to be fully interactive. So what you need to do is click on, type in slido.com, and then when you go to that website, you type in AMCHAM, that's your code to enter the website, and then that will allow you to ask questions, take a poll, and do many extraordinary things that we did not think was possible today for this event. So trust me when I say today we have a treat in store for you.
Thank you so much, Sharla. A couple of things to mention, seeing that the formalities are being taken care of. Very important notes before we get into the first speaker. Our booths, interactive booths, truly amazing. Now, Sharla would have mentioned iPad, iPhone, Samsung. If you need to charge up, you could, of course, not only talk to the folks at BP and get amazing information. There is indeed a cell phone charging tower for those who need a charge, and it's free of charge. Enjoy. Our friends there at Sagicor are dealing with mortgages, so you can go talk to the representatives as they give you, of course, commercial and residential rates. Of course, our friends at Scotia are always on top of financial issues, and you can definitely touch base with them across to my right, your left. And our friends at Southern Sales, they deal with the rentals. And for those, of course, they deal with some amazing brands. I know Audi and a Kia is in the mix. For those who love the Tida, I think they'll probably make some kind of special exception. But I'm not too sure they deal with that one per se, but Southern Sales, they're in the building, and everyone got some kind of special giveaway happening. So feel free when we give you that particular, indication as to when you can go across, put in your business cards, and we have giveaways all throughout the day, and we have some giveaways with Ashley during the course for some amazing gift vouchers. So we're ready now to get into the formalities.
That's right. So we are getting ready to introduce someone who strangely wants no introduction. She is very humble. And we'd like to introduce Patricia Ghani, President of AMCHAM Trinidad and Tobago, to deliver the welcome remarks for today's proceedings.
Senator, the Honorable Paula Gopi-Schoon, Minister of Trade, Ms. Tora Bass, HMB, Rosio Medina Bolivar, Ms. Rupa Unikrishna, Susie Teal, distinguished speakers, members of the Board of Directors of AMCHAM TNT. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to start my remarks today with a quote from Melinda Gates, author of The Moment of Lift. She says that a world without sexism would be a world with fewer barriers between girls and the women they dream of becoming. We'd see women leading and shaping all aspects of society, fully empowered as decision makers in their families, their communities, their governments, and their workplaces. As president of AMCHAM TNT, I fervently believe this. And I am here today to share with you a few things we've done at AMCHAM TNT to ensure that this vision of women being fully empowered happens today and into the future. With this, I say, welcome everyone to AMCHAM's 6th Women's Leadership Conference. It is indeed an honor to be in this room filled with talented women and forward-thinking men. Each year, International Women's Day is built upon a theme that sparks awareness and results in encouraging individuals, businesses, and corporations to take action. This year's theme, Balance for Better, invites all men and women globally to take concrete steps to help accelerate the achievement of gender parity. The focus is not only on taking action, but also on being accountable. 6 years ago, AMCHAM TNT decided to launch its first Women in Leadership and Networking series in recognition of International Women's Day. After the success of our first event, Sowing the Seeds of Change, we recognized that as a business organization, we had a role to play in initiating and fostering positive change in society. What began as a seminar aimed at networking has evolved into a forum for bold and candid discussions on inclusiveness, diversity, and accountability. Today's event is a positive step in this direction as we facilitate dialogue, which is needed if we are to ensure that women are not only inspired, but also to live in environments that are fair and equitable. More specifically, the aim is for women to be able to exist in environments where they can thrive, be ambitious, gain success, and not have the concerns of being negatively labeled, sexually harassed, bullied, or have workplace bias, color, cultural background, and pregnancy impact their career progression. However, even with our great aspirations today, gender equality still remains a distant dream. We have all seen the numbers. If you have not, let me briefly recap some of the statistics here for you. According to the World Bank data, globally, we are heading in the wrong direction. Women's labor force participation fell from 51.3% of women in 1990 to 48.4% in 2018. Research by the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development estimates that factors stifling the economic potential of women cost the global economy up to $12 trillion. Yes, that's $12 trillion. The Global Gender Gap Report 2018, published by the World Economic Forum, indicated that with the current rate of progress, it may take another 202 years to close the economic gender gap. Locally, while there is gender parity up to middle management, averaging around 48%, at the C-suite level, the ratio falls to less than 25% female participation, and the figures are even less when it comes to representation at the board level. These and many other statistics show that while gender parity is good for business and the economy, the pace in which progress is being achieved is not enough. So I know you must be asking yourselves, what can we do to change this? How can we increase accountability in our businesses and personal spheres of influence so that it will not take 202 years to close this gap? AMCHAM TNT continues to ask these questions because we believe that equality is not a female issue, but an economic imperative and a necessary element of a progressive society. We recognize that the responsibility in achieving equality does not solely lie with government, but requires true collaboration between government, companies, NGOs, and society at large if the 50-50 dream is to be realized. All stakeholders will need to step up, acknowledge the role they play in maintaining the status quo, and start to implement crucial actions needed to change it. We also believe we must walk the walk and begin to live the things for which AMCHAM TNT advocates. In 2017, we partnered with the IDB to launch the Women in Leadership Mentorship Program, where we paired female employees from our member companies with mentors from the IDB Global Network of Professionals. We are happy to report that after a successful first cohort of 7 mentees, this year's group of mentees has increased to 21. That is an increase of 286%, and what I believe is a testament of the value and the need for such a program. We decided this year that we would extend the opportunity of mentorship to members also of the AMCHAM Secretariat. And I know there's one mentee from last year who's in the room, so I don't know if she's here as yet. I would like her to stand, and also all the AMCHAM mentees to stand so that you can see who they are, so we can give them a round of applause. It was Mother Teresa who said, if you want to change the world, go home and love your family. We at AMCHAM TNT cannot be a champion of change without instilling that change into the very fabric of our organization and loving our collective AMCHAM TNT family. We must put action into words and ensure that we lead by example at all levels of our organization. Just a year ago, our then President Mitchell De Silva stated that his wish was to hand over the reins of AMCHAM TNT to a female president. Thanks to the encouragement and support of past presidents, board and committee members, I was elected the 15th president of AMCHAM TNT a mere 3 months later. I stand here knowing that my story is part of a larger story, a story that began when some audacious woman, U.S. Ambassador Sally Cowell, Nisha Lau, and June Mirage, came together to conceptualize an organization that would later turn into the American Chamber of Commerce of Trinidad and Tobago. It is on this history that I will continue the work of all the leaders who came before me. This is something I believe we all have in common. Like me, you carry the hopes of your parents, the hopes of the teacher who believed and encouraged you, the hopes of the mentors, bosses, and others who continue to push you to achieve your greatest potential. It is the same way AMCHAM TNT continues to push the agenda of our members, and we are unafraid to have bold conversations and take a seat at the table where we choose to be a symbol of audacity and strength not only for this nation but for the Americas, and not only on this issue, but any issue around fairness, equity, transparency, and accountability. After this year's AGM, I expect that AMCHAM TNT will just be shy of parity on our board, as I anticipate that 7 of our 16 board members will be female, extremely well-qualified women. I think that deserves a round of applause. So I would like to throw out a challenge to my colleagues in the business community. If your board compromises fewer than 35% women, commit to adding at least 1 woman to your board every year until you achieve at least that ratio. Although I would argue that parity should be your goal. I have been in business for quite a long time, and I assure you that there's no shortage of capable, well-qualified women. If you need references or recommendation, just ask anyone in this room or connect with me and I'd be happy to help. I would like to take the time to acknowledge the men in the room. Over the past 6 years, we've seen their numbers grow from 1 to, I think this year, it is our highest representation. So, thank you very much for being here. As Emma Watson said in her speech at Davos 2016, it is time that we perceive gender on a spectrum and not as two opposing sets of ideals. Bringing men into the conversation in a productive and open-minded way is a crucial step to actually making progress on issues of gender inequality. We thank you for your support and your willingness to join the conversation today. This is the only place that you're outnumbered, but hopefully that begins to change over the years. To all the talented and amazing women in this room, do not apologize for your uniqueness, your passion, and your ideas. Keep pursuing excellence and continue to speak up not only for yourself, but for all. Let us see what happens when we all use our voices and institutions to advocate for gender parity, prosperity, and a more equitable future. In closing, I would like to recognize the commitment of our CEO, Narad Tiwari, and the AMCHAM Secretariat in organizing this event. A special thank you to Francesca Hector for all her hard work and dedication over the past few months. Thank you to all our sponsors for your continued support over the years. We hope that the conversations today will inspire each of us to take actions to support and drive economic opportunities for women around the world. As we learn a bit more about the landscape of women equity issues, strategies for work-life balance, risk-taking, and career mobility, I am confident we will exceed our own expectations if we remain committed and accountable. Thank you, and enjoy your day with us today.
Thank you very much, AMCHAM Trinidad and Tobago's President, Patricia Ghani. Now, Patricia is the second female president of AMCHAM TNT, and it is really inspiring to see a woman at the helm of such a distinguished organization. It's important now that all organizations begin to walk the walk and talk the talk and do their part to advocate and contribute to gender parity in the workplace and society. It's also important that, as we say, the theme for this year, balance for better, that we have gender balance in all spheres of society, whether it be sport, the economy, media, and education, and women actually have a seat at every single leadership table across the world.
Well said. Of course, let me also recognize some folks who will join us on stage to share their story and their journey. Shamla Maraj, founder of Abnormal Progress, social inclusion consultant, and host of TTT's morning show segment, Unique, Not Different, will join us later on. We will also be joined by Hema Ramkisoon, Deputy Head of News at GML, Guardian Media Limited, and also Anya Ayongchi, fashion designer, entrepreneur, and activist. Of course, to the board of directors here at AMCHAM, again, all our members of media, we say welcome. Now, there is the YouShare social media booth. It's again to my right, which is your left, and they have some amazing paraphernalia, everything from Mexican hat to shades to all kind of bacchanal. So, when all you're ready, you could feel free and take a nice little picture and tag hashtag AMCHAM 2019.
And don't forget balance for better.
That's right. We get ready now for our keynote address, and we welcome to the lectern Senator the Honorable Paula Gopi-Scoon. Now, the senator, she was appointed Minister of Trade and Industry September 11th, 2015. Senator Gopi-Scoon has previously served in government as the Minister of Foreign Affairs from 2007 to 2010.
She was first elected as a Member of Parliament for Point Fortin in November of 2007, a post she held up to May 2015.
Of course, UE celebrates Paula Gopi-Scoon as one of their shining stars, and she also would have attended the University of London. Of course, we look at her amazing career, which includes experience in the banking sector, having held various managerial positions in banks throughout Trinidad and Tobago. We're talking here Republic Bank. Remember Workers Bank? Workers Bank, remember Workers Bank? Yes? And of course, Royal Bank of Trinidad and Tobago Limited.
Yes, she's garnered extensive business experiences as a director of family companies, an avid art collector. Bet you didn't know that. She also enjoys a good game of Scrabble, which I cannot play, by the way, and has an appreciation for the Caribbean and its culture.
My friend's keynote speaker, our Minister Senator, the Honorable Paula Gopi-Schoon.
Good morning, everyone. And let me recognize Patricia Gani. Thank you for those lovely words. Patricia is your female president of AMCHAM, and let me recognize as well the members of the board of AMCHAM, CEO Nirad Tawari, Rocio Medina Bolivar, the country head of IADB, and I think, let me say, all of the members of the head table. We have many guests here, including Susie Teal and Rupa Unikrishnan. And all the other panelists, let me acknowledge you, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen, all. I'm really happy to be here this morning, and thank you, AMCHAM, for the invitation. Really, it's my pleasure to join you here today to stand in this room full of very powerful and courageous women who continue to push the envelope of success, and of course, a few men who are joining us today. So today's event is really a celebration of how far we have come as women, and it's also an opportunity for us to revitalize our commitment to breaking societal barriers, and creating equal opportunities for future generations of women. Just 1 week ago, the world celebrated International Women's Day with the most appropriate theme, Balance for Better, attaching the importance of women internationally in every aspect of society, and the balance that is necessary to contribute meaningfully and to achieve wholesome and happy lives. And this theme sets the impetus for today's engagement and echoes a clarion call for gender parity, greater gender parity across the world, as we strive to achieve Sustainable Development Goal 5, which involves the promotion of gender equality and the empowerment of women globally. In particular, this year's theme focuses on women and girls to think equal, to build smart, and innovate for change, and puts innovation by women and girls at the heart of efforts to achieve greater gender equality. Our world is changing, and I'm so happy to see one of the speakers here today, and I'm going to stay indeed to listen to her. We are within the fourth industrial revolution, where technology is rapidly influencing the way we think and the way we work, the way we communicate and conduct business. And gone are the days when the traditional mindsets of leadership and traditional business models determine success. So that businesses are now looking for the right mix to complement technology and innovation. So my research drew me to an article which was published by Forbes Communications Council entitled, How the Female Mind Can Bring the Innovation to Establish Industries, wherein it defined women's ability to multitask, readily adapt and adjust, and to empathize being key characteristics believed to help make companies more successful. These things matter. The article made reference to the physiological differences between the male and female, stating that women multitask, understand situations, and empathize better, whereas men focus, analyze, and deliver solutions better. But I don't entirely agree with them, because I think we do all of those things too. But the article suggests, it went on to suggest, and the point being that humanity is the new killer app, and that female leaders, as a result of their strengths, are better able to marry humanity with digitization. And that these characteristics certainly make us a galvanizing force that creates innovative thinking and makes us well capable of waking companies out of their slumber. And indeed, we are very capable of doing that. So I do agree. Previously, the characteristics which defined us as soft to us are really some of the defining traits in successful businesses. And with the increased technology in business, now more than ever, businesses must really understand what their customers want and what drives consumerism. And sometimes, who better than a woman? So that our ability to produce solutions and our ability to collaborate and see different perspectives really provide us with a distinct advantage to offer the kind of innovative solutions that are necessary. However, certainly more change is needed, and Patricia highlighted some of the statistics. And looking at the Fortune 1000 companies, there are only 5% of women at the top. 5% of companies are led by female CEOs, yet they generate 7% of the total revenue of the organizations on the list and outperform the the S&P 500 index over their respective tenures. These figures might well be a close reflection of the status quo in the region and at home. But the power of women has been overlooked by society for quite some time. And as of 2013, women represented a growth market more than twice as big as China and India combined, in which they controlled $20 trillion in consumer spending, owned or operated 25 to 33% of private businesses, and earned an estimated $13 trillion. So I'm talking about the power of spend here, in that our spend has tremendous influence and opportunity. And the enormity of this consumer market presents opportunities for business and for influence. So this is something that we have to continue to expand, this power, then determine the untapped niches and, of course, all of the innovative solutions within this consumerism. Globally, many initiatives are now focused on achieving increased female participation in the economy. And within the global trading environment, the International Trade Center launched the She Trades initiatives in 2010 to create an ecosystem of integrated solutions that empower women economically through trade via an app. And this initiative seeks to connect 3 million women entrepreneurs to market by 2021 by enhancing their competitiveness and creating sustainable connections between buyers and partners and female entrepreneurs. And in Nigeria, this initiative was a huge success story with Eclectic Chic, an African-inspired accessories brand based in Lagos, which employs over 55 female artisans receiving coaching and support from the initiative. And this company was able to participate in multiple international trade shows, where it generated significant sales leads, which led to the brand securing a contract and order from a worldwide recognized buyer. And I say all of that to say that similar programs must be encouraged and are absolutely necessary as we seek to promote equal gender participation in the economy and in trade as well. And this morning you highlighted the AMCHAM's mentorship program, which must be lauded and which has a long way to go and much results to obtain with regard to mentorship and gender equality. But at a time when the world seeks balance and where balance is expected and noticed if absent, let us accept that balance is just not a woman's issue, but it's a business issue. And as expressed in the International Women's Day campaign, the race is on for the gender-balanced boardroom, a gender-balanced government, a gender-balanced media coverage, a gender balance of employees, a gender balance in wealth, and gender balanced sports coverage. And this is a global phenomenon which, if we all continue to play our part and lift others along with us, there will be a bright and balanced future where the next generation will contribute greatly to society. And that lifting, however, includes the mentoring, it includes the sharing, it includes the forgiving and the praising and the unity. And in building smart, we must adequately ready ourselves to participate effectively in the global sphere through education and continued advancement and building wealth and preparing ourselves for the opportunities around us. But where are we in Trinidad and Tobago? And women in Trinidad and Tobago certainly have made some advances in all areas of society, including the social and the economic and the cultural and the academic and, of course, the sporting and political spheres as well. But one of the more recent demonstrations, and permit me the opportunity to speak to this, is in the area of culture and the arts and in our carnival, where, for example, our twin sisters, Kathy and Karen Norman, band leaders of K2K Alliance earned the overall Band of the Year title for their presentation through stained glass windows. And it is the first time that this coveted title has been captured by a female duo, breaking a major gender barrier in the carnival industry in Trinidad and Tobago, an industry worth hundreds of millions. And let me take the time to acknowledge some more outstanding women who have contributed to this carnival success. And in our mass bands, we talk about Dina King, but Monique de Norbrega with the Lost Tribe and the other tribe bands, Caro, our sister Caro from Ronnie and Caro, Tracy Andre from Paparazzi, Rosalind Gabriel, who repeatedly gives us years of Kiddies Carnival and this year provided commentary at our shows. And our beautiful soca music, Nadia Batson, Nyla Blackman, Patrice Roberts, and I'm going to run out of space. And in Pan, our Panorama champions, BP Renegades, led by Candice Bermont. Pan Trinbago's president, Beverly Ramsey Moore, did amazing work with our Panorama this year. All of the NAPRIMA girls who were part of the school's Panorama champions, all of our elite frontline performance throughout various teal bands, all our performers on the stage and on the day. The women behind our improved Soca Monarch competition, Fian Lyons Alvarez, all of that this year. And all of our national carnival activities held under the stewardship of our very own Minister of Community Development, Culture and the Arts, Minister Nyan Gatsby-Dolly. So our carnival, dubbed the greatest show on earth, and which continues to contribute immensely to our economy, very much championed by us, promoted by us, enjoyed by us, the women of Trinidad and Tobago. Let me just speak a little bit about the role of the government. The government acknowledges the significance of female involvement in gender affairs, and you may well be aware of the Gender Affairs Unit, which is under the purview of the Office of the Prime Minister and spearheaded by a female, again, Minister, the Honourable Ayanna Webster Roy. And the mandate of this Gender Affairs Division is to effectively promote gender equity and gender justice through the process of gender mainstreaming in all government policies, programs, and projects. And in this regard, the unit has developed a national policy on gender and development, a green paper in 2018, soon to be turned into a white paper. And the overall goal of the policy is to create a gender-just society, which is free from discrimination on the basis of sex, in which women and men and boys and girls of all stages of the life cycle, at all levels and in all spheres of life, can develop their full potential. It is envisaged that the further implementation of government policy, gender equality and equity will be achieved by the year 2030, which is in keeping with the government's National Development Strategy, Vision 2030, and the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. And under Vision 2030, the government recognizes that each individual must be given an equal opportunity to contribute and to self-actualize regardless of race, gender, ethnicity, or socioeconomic background, so that the potential is there for creativity and the innovation to be the key drivers of our personal, our social, and our economic development, but these must be nurtured and encouraged. Just last Friday in the House of Representatives, and indeed on International Women's Day 2019, the government launched a national workplace policy on sexual harassment, which was developed by the Ministry of Labour and Small Enterprise Development. And of course, we thank our sister Jennifer Batiste Primus, Honourable Senator. The overall objective of this policy is to prevent sexual harassment in the workplace, identify and address relevant issues, and to provide guidance and actions that might be taken by stakeholders in addressing this issue, which affects both men and women. And this was a long overdue policy, and we are pleased that it has been well received by the population. So that the government is doing its part to facilitate and promote the protection of women and to create the much needed balance throughout all of the sectors. But we must collectively do our part, and men, you have to support and you have to trust and you have to encourage women and provide the opportunity in all of our endeavors. And women, you must continue to strive to be the best that you can and to be bold and to be daring and to be fearless. But for the women in this room, you already have achieved some measure of success, and therefore much falls to you, so that your balance also involves, apart from lifting other women and looking after yourselves, it's improving our country. So for all of us in this room, yes, we will speak to work and personal balance, but because of our very success, it is imperative that part of our life is dedicated to building this country and to transforming Trinidad and Tobago and to making it the best place on earth. And we really each have to do more, not necessarily through business or through politics, but simply as a citizen, giving service to country and to humanity through volunteerism. Your country needs you, and this responsibility must form part of your day-to-day equation. And for me personally, I must say something that last year, 12 years in politics has been really demanding, but it's been rewarding. And really it forces you to create the balance if you're going to remain mentally and spiritually and physically well and capable to do the kind of job that you have to attend to. But for me, I have to be honest that I too struggle, like many of you in here, with maintaining that balance. But of course, its importance cannot be understated. Family life, friendship, sisterhood, and spirituality are major pillars in achieving this balance. And of course, having become a grandmother twice in 1 year, I mean, I have a renewed sense of importance of balance. And these grandchildren bring me so much joy, immense joy, that I really do wish to lay a foundation for them. And that's something that we all have to do. Sometimes the balance forces us to look at the other side. A balance for both of them, but particularly for my granddaughter, the perfect mix of power and strength and love and grace. And to do this, of course, is leading by example. So the management of our time and of ourselves is key, and you really have to still, with all that we do is to make the time for the persons that we love and the things that you love to do, and so on, because the love of family and the love of friends and the love of God certainly cannot be replaced by the money or the material things. So in closing, we cannot attempt to be part of the quest to achieve and promote gender equality without ensuring that we are willing and that we are able and that we are capable. And as such, a balance is absolutely necessary, essential to achieving this success. You simply must be a vessel within yourself of mental, of spiritual and emotional strength. And it's only from there that you can truly pour out. The world needs you. Their country needs you. Your family needs you. Your family needs you. Your sisters need you. And I thank you. Enjoy the day. It's going to be an interesting day. I wish I could spend the day with you. But I'm certainly going to stay there to hear the next speaker. And I will pop by again this evening to listen to the interesting panel discussion promised after lunch. Thank you very, very much for the opportunity.
Thank you so much, Minister. I'd like to call up Neeraj Tiwari, CEO of AMCHAM Trinidad and Tobago, to make a brief presentation of gratitude to Minister Gopi Skoon. Thank you very much to the Honorable Minister of Trade and Industry. Now that is great news. Just a gentle reminder to take out your smartphones and go on slido.com. You can ask any questions that will be answered during today's program. So slido.com, the code is AMCHAM. It's very simple. Have you asked a question, Jason?
Soon, very soon.
I was
so taken aback by the minister's presentation. I really love the fact that you would have acknowledged all the significant women who would have put some contributions there on that Carnival campus. I mean, in truth and reality, Carnival is woman, you know. Carnival is woman.
I would attempt to sing, but no.
It's true. And they're playing such a significant role all over, so we give thanks for that.
And still waiting on that Scrabble tutorial.
Coming soon. Now, we're getting ready for another address. After that, we will have a panel discussion. But right now, though, we get ourselves ready for someone very special.
Yeah, as we get ready to introduce officially the topic for this year's International Women's Day, Balance for Better. Now, we spoke about it before, Minister spoke about it as well. And we're speaking so much about balance in every aspect of a woman's life and society as well. So we're going to talk a lot about that. And to do that,
we welcome, of course, Susie Teal, Head of Marketing and Communications at Advanced Robotics in Manufacturing Institute. Now, let me give you some brief details. Susie is highly respected and highly respected executive who has been an integral part of the Pittsburgh technology and business community.
She is a proven leader who has consistently grown businesses and built teams for over 25 years.
Of course, she has presented and trained hundreds of executives through her partnerships with many established universities in the U.S.
Since 2017, Susie has been the head of marketing and communications for Advanced Robotics in Manufacturing, that's ARM or ARM, a national public-private partnership focused on advancing robotics and workforce development to grow U.S. manufacturing.
Let's give a very warm Trinbago welcome and an AMCHAM welcome to Susie Teal as she brings forward her feature address.
Okay. Welcome. And it is a delight from the state of Pennsylvania. We have a great state of Pennsylvania. Should have. It sounds fine now, right? Sorry about that. I think we're okay. Again, it's wonderful to be from the great state of Pennsylvania in the United States of America. Not working. And I'll go ahead and do this. I don't want to hold things up. Welcome, and let us start all over again. Good morning. It's a delight to be here. I'm from the great state of Pennsylvania in the United States of America, and as a result of the partnership between AMCHAM and Indiana University of Pennsylvania, which is a state school in Pennsylvania, I am an IUP alumni, and I was asked to come and visit your beautiful country and to spend some time here sharing what I've learned in 3 areas that are very personally important to me. Beyond my family. I love my family, but from a professional standpoint, I really care about 3 areas. One is women's development and women's leadership. The second is leadership overall, and the third is technology. And so I am looking forward to working with AMCHAM through Tuesday of next week, putting on various programs, and this is the first one that I'm participating with. So you had a little bit about my background, but let me share a little bit more. Since 1999, I've been actively involved in the advancement of women within not only the Pittsburgh region, but all over the country. I helped to launch in 1999 in the United States the National Education Center for Women in Business, which was the first website that was launched to help women all over the United States get information about what they could do to be better business people. Since then, I've been involved with regional organizations that were focused in helping women-owned businesses, building advisory boards for women-owned businesses to help them grow. About 2.5 years ago, I started a chapter of a national organization called Women for Economic and Leadership Development in the Pittsburgh region, and grew that to over 175 members during my 2 years as a co-founder of that organization. So women's leadership is very important to me. And it's not just me, it goes throughout my whole family. I have 6 children, and 4 of them are girls, and I have 2 granddaughters. And let me tell you a little bit about my children. My oldest daughter, Dawn, is a professor at the University of Pennsylvania, or Penn, and she's a political science major in feminist studies. She wrote her thesis on how women got the right to vote across the world. She has 2 daughters, my 2 lovely granddaughters. I understand, Minister, the joy of having grandchildren. My 2 granddaughters are named after European suffragettes. Their names are Maddie and Sylvia. Pretty serious, right? My next oldest daughter, Emily, works at a major sports organization. Their motto is "Just Do It." As a woman director of marketing in a sports company, right, that is filled with a lot of men. My next oldest daughter, Lindsay, has spent much of her college career interning and working with organizations both in the United States and in Australia to help women become better, learn how to run for local offices. So the programs that do that. And my youngest daughter is a whole other story, but she is actually in Italy going to an international high school. My family and my daughters are serious about women's leadership and women's commitment, and I'm very proud of them because that's what's important to all of us. And so when I look back at my own career and I look at the work that I've done in women's leadership and the success that I've had as a business leader, I've been a chief operating officer twice. I've been a consultant on my own, working and helping companies get started. I was a general manager of a $250 million software division of a $500 million company. I've done a lot of things. And I kind of look like this, right? Like the rest of us. And yes, I actually do have other sets of arms. They are robotic arms now. Which my current love right now is robots. And so this is what today's conference is all about, right? How do we find the balance? How do we find balancing all the things that are on this sheet, and how do you do it? And, and the statistics that Patricia shared with us are very true. And there are many opportunities for us to improve in gender equality. The statistics that the minister shared are very true, too. But I would also like to say that there's never been a better time to be a woman. And the reason that I say that is because in the United States, I remember that it wasn't until 1974 that a woman could have a checking account without a male's name on it, or that a woman could get a mortgage without a male signing for it, right? And so when I look back, and I was 14 years old in 1974, right? So I was getting ready to, go into college and do things like that. When I look back and I look at the change in the United States and how the changes happen across the world, I do realize that we have made significant advancement. There is much more work to be done, as we've all talked about, and we will talk about for the rest of today. But I think it's also important to celebrate where we are today. And where we really are today is that women have a voice. If you look at everything that's happened over the past couple years, from the Women's March, which I did participate in Washington, D.C. with my daughter. Actually, two of my daughters were there, and that was an international impact with countries all over the world being involved with that several years ago. And the United States in particular with the Me Too movement. Women have a voice, and we have a voice like we haven't had ever in the history, actually, of the world. Countries are different at different levels, but overall, we have a voice. And what happens when you have a voice? You have power. And that, I think, is the most important change that I've seen happen in my lifetime relative to where women are at. The power that we have is driven primarily through the economy. And Nirad and I were having a discussion last night over dinner, and I said it'll be very interesting 20 years from now to look back and look at this era, right, in our world and what's been happening, and the fact that women have gotten now economic power. And when women have economic power, that means that we can contribute as an equal. There is much work to do, but that economic power that allows us to work, to have salaries, to raise families, and not always require a male in order to be successful in our lives, even though many of us choose to do that, and it's a wonderful environment, it's a wonderful life. That power allows us to ask for that seat at the table. And that's what I think is really important when I think about women empowerment and women leadership. And so my question to all of you is, how are you going to use the power that we have? Because we do have power. And women tend to think we don't have power. And Nirad and I were talking about this last night. I think you've all heard this statistic. It's pretty much worldwide. When there's a job that's available and there are 10 qualifications, a man will look and say, I have 3 or 4, and they will apply for the job. And the woman will say, I have only 9, and they won't apply for the job, right? Let's start applying for the job if we have 4 or 5 of those qualifications. And so that's the power that we have, the power to be able to stand up for ourselves, to be proud of the capabilities that we have developed in terms of our own careers and our own families. So here are some of the areas where I think women can expand their power. And I just want to spend a couple minutes talking about these, because these are what I tell my daughters and what I will tell my granddaughters and what I talk about when I speak with women throughout the United States about leadership. One of the very most important things that we all need to do, men and women, but women in particular, is invest in additional education. We were just having the discussion at the table about the future of work. Being in robotics and artificial intelligence, there was a lot of concern about what jobs are going to look like in 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. And I just want to leave you with something to think about that I think is really important for all of us. The pace of automation is such that when you compare it with the increase in the average lifespan of a person, it's very likely that maybe not you, but your children will have multiple careers in their lifetime. So if we think back to maybe our parents or grandparents, they trained for a certain career and they were able to do that for the rest of their lives. That is no longer true and will not be true moving forward. And so it's critical for all of us to think about not what our next job will be, but what our next career will be. Because there is a chance that the career that you have will become automated in some way. And so there is a very important initiative that all countries need to consider, and that is, how do we invest in lifelong learning? How do we create an environment where it's perfectly acceptable to go back to school after 10 years and learn a new trade? Right? And I don't know exactly, I know Trinidad is much more generous. In the United States, we have families that spend $100,000, $200,000 to put their child through school, and that training may only last them 10 years. But they're still paying school loans for 30 years. Doesn't match, doesn't make sense. So investing in additional education to prepare for the future is critical for everyone and women, and that ties to the new career challenge. New jobs will be opening. We talked about social media. Would any of you have thought that 10 years ago there would be a job called social media manager? No, right? But that's a very popular job these days, right? And so looking forward and looking at those opportunities for new career challenges are really important and will allow women to have additional power. Because if we reach first for some of these new careers, we'll put ourselves in a position to be more likely to have leadership roles in those careers if we reach out to those. The third, and we always hear this, right? Women make 70 cents on the dollar, 80 cents on the dollar, different numbers. Ask for what you deserve, right? I learned early in my career there's no fear in asking for anything. The worst they can do is say no. And then you ask again later, right? Ask for what you deserve. Invest your earnings. We are all living longer, right? We are going to live into our 80s and 90s. Our children are going to live longer. Make sure that we can enjoy the end of our life as much as we enjoy the middle of our lives, right? So think about how to invest in your earnings. Network. Look at all of you here today. Perfect opportunity for networking. Perfect opportunity to build relationships with each other and to help each other. Men are very good at helping each other be successful. And women are very good at helping their families, right? Women can be just as good at helping each other and helping men, and men can be just as good at helping women too. And so that's really, really critical. I've heard women so many times say, well, you know, I've got this issue, I've got this issue. I'm like, I raised 6 kids. I still manage to go to networking events with women. If I did it, so can you, right? So find those opportunities for lovely events like today to take advantage of. Invest in your community and your passions. Many of the opportunities that I've gotten in my own professional life were because I invested in my passion for women's leadership. And I was able to speak at events like today, and I was able to build relationships that led to opportunities for me. And so, what is your passion? And what are you going to spend your time doing? And take the time to do it. 1 or 2 nights a month to network with other women is not going to cause your children to run off and be crazy people, right? We all know that. So take the time to do that. Explore the world. My husband and I have a commitment where we try every single year to visit a country that we haven't been to before. I'm very excited to be to Trinidad because I have not been here before. This is the 36th country that I have visited in my life. I plan to visit a lot more before I can no longer travel. So again, NEROD and AMCHAM, thank you for allowing me to add another number to my countries that I've visited. And most importantly, I want to leave you with the message to celebrate yourself, right? We have achieved so much. There is more work to do, and I won't stop doing it, and I will continue to fight for women and for women's equality and for women's success for as long as I can. And I have instilled that in my daughters and in my son and in my husband, who's sitting in the back right there taking pictures. And so they are all supportive of this mission, and we'll continue to do that. But we should also take time to celebrate where we are today and what we have accomplished, and understand that by investing in these things, investing in ourselves, that we are putting ourselves in a better position of power to take responsibility to impact even more issues when it comes to gender equality and when it comes to these opportunities to really allow men and women to work together in a way where we feel that we're bringing the best out in everybody. Thank you very much.
Yes. Of course, thank you so much, Susie. Let's give Susie another round of applause, my friends. Susie, technically 37 countries there, Trinidad and Tobago.
Yes, that's true. That's two. I can add two.
We're having some fun. So actually, Susie's going to stay there with us because what we're going to do right now, Charlotte,
No. Yeah. Can you switch on mics, please? We're going to move on to our panel discussion. It is Balance for Better,
okay, now.
360 Perspective. And as we get ready to introduce our members of the panel, we're saying thank you very much to our former speaker. And also we're getting ready to do a little switch up on the stage.
I think Susie is actually going to stay with us for this particular part, but she's going to take the mic off as we clear the stage so we can get a good perspective of what's about to transpire.
360 perspective.
360, and that's actually what the theme is all about, a 360 perspective. Let me invite our moderator for this, Giselle Thompson. Now, Giselle is the Vice President, Corporate Operations for BP Trinidad and Tobago. In this role, she holds accountability for the corporate functions and communications and external affairs, ethics and compliance, facilities and management services. Of course, Giselle, she will moderate today's proceedings, yes?
Mm-hmm. And Giselle also holds an honors degree in management studies from the University of the West Indies and was awarded their Distinguished Alumni Award in 2014.
We also welcome Stephen Banierol, of course appointed the Senior Vice President and Head of the Caribbean South and East, of course on November 1st, 2017. Of course, Stephen joined Scotiabank. Of course, he represents Scotia. That's Mr. Scotia. He represents, he started off in 1998 as part of the International Associate Development Program, working both in commercial banking and global risk management.
Stephen possesses extensive knowledge and experience leading teams and driving results. Since assuming the role of Managing Director of Scotiabank Trinidad and Tobago, he has continued to develop and implement local business plans in alignment with Scotiabank's global strategy and risk appetite and in compliance with government and regulatory laws.
Stephen's role would have taken him to places like Mexico, Panama. Now he's here in Trinidad and Tobago.
That's right. Also, we are getting ready to welcome Ms. Shamla Maharaj. I'm also a very big fan of Shamla. Shamla, it's very nice to share an event with you. She's the founder of Abnormal Progress, host of Unique Not Difference, co-author of an Amazon bestseller, international keynote speaker, a strong business development professional. And Shamla, who has cerebral palsy from birth, she is consistent about proving that a person with a disability can live a full life once the opportunity is created. And also, Shamla has worked on a national level in both agribusiness and child development.
Indeed. So Shamla will join us on stage. With us also Tora Best. And of course, Ms. Best was indeed an educator for 42 years, making that impact on so many, many students. Of course, now a retired primary school teacher. She worked for 1 year as project coordinator of the Laventon Mover Schools Improvement Project, and at present she is the chairman of the Board of Directors at the Youth Training and Employment Partnership Program, that's YTEP, and the Trinbago Unified Calypsonians Association, TUCO, in the Junior Calypso Committee.
She was also awarded the Hummingbird Medal in Gold in 2017 for national development and continues to serve her community of Morva after more than 40 years. She's committed to public service in its broadest sense and loves Renegades Steel Orchestra.
Oh, she was happy with the results from this year's Panorama, yes? Yes. Didn't argue with that one. So, we have, of course, brought forward all the names for the panel discussion. They are being mic'd as we speak. They will join us momentarily. So again, enjoy. Let me remind all the ladies and the few gentlemen in the room, giveaways all throughout the course of the session. You can check the various booths during the lunchtime, and later on we have a special giveaway, compliments of friends at Ashley Furniture.
Don't forget to go to slido.com as well. Ask your questions, especially during this panel discussion. Anything that you may want to ask, please post it on slido.com. Remember, the code is AMCHAM, and all your questions will be answered. Also, make your way to our photo booth and take your pictures. I'm seeing a lot of interesting hats. Jason, you interested?
I mean, you have any wigs? You have anything to give me a little something?
No.
Here?
No, please.
Okay, well,
no,
we'll
not
work
that
it
one.
out. We'll work
It's
it out.
not that kind of day.
Not that kind of day. So Giselle, it's all yours. Take it away as we get ready for the panel discussion.
Thank you.
So good morning, everyone. So I'm looking forward to the panel conversation today, because this is not just about us having a nice conversation, but this is about getting you, ladies and gentlemen, involved in the conversation as well. So please use the Slido app. It is really good, and it's a way for you to put your questions up. So I have a few prepared questions, but I want to hear from you what you want to hear from our panelists today. So you can ask your questions. If you see a question go up that you like, you can like it so that I can see here if a question has 7 likes or 8 likes. Okay, I'm going to ask the panelists that question. Okay, so I think we have everyone here, and morning to our panelists.
Good morning.
Thanks for joining us today. And the purpose of the panel is to explore today's theme, Balance for Better, a little deeper. So Susie, thanks for sharing your wonderful story with us and those great tips on how we achieve a bit more balance. But we recognize balance means lots of different things to different people. So I think, we want to first start off with just getting to understand, what does balance mean for you? So for some, it may mean work-life balance. For others, we automatically think it's gender parity and gender balance. But maybe, Susie, if I start with you, maybe you could share for you personally, what does balance mean? And even in your own organization, what does balance mean in an organizational context?
That's a wonderful question, and certainly, as you mentioned, can be perceived many different ways. I tend to take it a little bit more personally, and I say, if Susie is feeling happy and fulfilled, then the rest of my family and my coworkers are in an environment where we all can be successful together. And so for me, work-life balance is really focused around finding a way that I can contribute in the different areas of my life, and do it in such a way that others see value in it, but I also see value in what I'm providing too. And so it's a very hard concept to answer, because we hear statistics, but we all know of environments where you may be the only woman in an organization and be perfectly satisfied in that role, right? Or you may decide that it is the right time, as I did while my children were growing up, to step out of the workforce and become an independent consultant for 10 years to allow me to have the balance to work with my children and raise them, as well as still remain engaged. So to me, balance is a personal question, and that's how I've always looked at it.
And Shamla, I wanted to hear from you as someone who is balancing many things. A media personality, you're balancing being back to school, pursuing, you're furthering your studies. business. So what does it mean for you personally?
Okay, well, for me, balance means a cohesion of different. So it's a multi-dimensional definition. Balance is a cohesion of things. One, when we talk about gender parity, we don't look at things like, okay, women, certain groups of women. We have to look beyond that in terms of, okay, what about the vulnerable groups? These women need rights as well to work in the corporate world. And to be honest, it starts from education go up. And some women still don't have access to education, and including men. For example, being a person with disability, we still don't have access to enter into elementary school. In terms of the corporate world, it is, as I said, a multidimensional approach where different sectors have to work together, both public and private sector, to force the drive between gender parity, equity, and a balance between men and women. Yeah.
Thank you so much for that. Great points. And as you were speaking about education, one thing that came to mind recently was an article I was reading where the author described the education system as one that conditions girls to be competent and conditions boys to be confident. And the author was suggesting that it is confidence and not only competence that results in boys or men being more successful in landing jobs or promotions. So maybe, Thora, this is a question for you as an educator. What role do you see the education system playing in supporting greater gender parity? And what can we do to condition our girls to be more confident?
Our education system needs to be transformed in that even though we have a written curriculum and we have compulsory education from 6 to 12, the quality of education that is given in an inner city or rural school is very different from the quality of education that is given in, let's say, what we call a prestige school. And of course, we find that the girls are always the ones at the bottom of the ladder, especially in the rural areas and, as I said, in the inner city schools. When we can change that dynamic and have people like your good selves here and people in NGOs going to the schools to give a better quality of educational experiences for our girls and our young men too, the girls will get that confidence to be able to approach the corporate world throughout their lives.
Any other comments from the panel on the role of education, you think, in supporting greater gender parity?
Well, I would just say that I think this morning there was a mention about confidence in terms of taking that leadership role on applying for jobs and the qualifications. And I have seen in the past where, you mentor a woman into saying, no, you are ready. You take it, take the leap, take the risk, and it's been very successful. So I think that if schools can be part of that, our family network society can be part of that, I think that's excellent. So I think schools do have a part to play.
Yes, and the wider public, they do have a part to play, like, as I said, NGOs. So we need NGOs and some of the young, successful women to go into schools that would not normally be able to accommodate them, to mentor these young women, to make them achieve their full potential.
I think you're right. And then parents have a role to play, right, in terms of nurturing and how we nurture our girls.
Yes, but the parents of inner city kids and in depressed areas, they don't have the wherewithal to give their children. So they will depend on the school, and then sometimes the school is not able to do all that it can. So the school, therefore, needs the help.
Thank you. So now we'll take some questions from the floor. So one question here that has the most likes so far is our audience would like to know or hear some commentary on the importance of employers adopting flexible working policies in support of mental health, balance, and productivity. Stephen, I don't know if you wanted to take that and just comment on maybe what Scotia is doing in that space.
Sure. First, I wanted to thank AMCHAM for having me here at this leadership conference, and it's an honor really to be here with so many empowered women here in the audience and here on the stage. You know, Scotiabank, we as a company, and I've been through, Trinidad and Tobago is the 7th country I've lived and worked in. And you see across, I've seen so many examples of where we have, we focus on the talent, regardless of whether it's gender, race, and age group. And you see what happens when you focus on the talent and you say, it doesn't matter if you're physically here between 8 o'clock and 5 o'clock. What we're looking for is getting the job done, the leadership behind it. And I remember a case where in Peru, where I just came from, where we had, gave flexible time for a woman to work half days. She was having wanted some additional flexibility given her family situation, and she wanted to work half days. And that woman did that for 2 years and was promoted. Because I think it's not about just giving the flexibility, but women have to understand that they also have the opportunity to advance if they take on these flexible work opportunities.
Because in today's world, really, work and family life blend. It's no longer sort of this 8 to 4, 9 to 5. So it is, I suppose, it's a give and take on the part of employers and employee in terms of what is the right working arrangements that can work for you and allows you to be more productive, as well as take care of your family needs. So I think there are many companies, I think, globally and locally that are doing so much in this space to understand that flexibility actually can support healthier family lives and work lives.
And, as I mentioned, career progression.
And career progression.
It's very important.
Very good. So another interesting topic is this notion of, do we need targets to achieve greater gender parity? There's some that have the view that we'll never get there. If we continue along the current path, it's like 200 years before we achieve gender parity. So do we need to be more aggressive in setting targets? So we've seen some companies work towards that. We've seen some countries, for example, Canada saying, President Trudeau saying, half my cabinet is going to be female. So I'd like to get some views on, do we think this setting of quotas will make a difference or help us in the long run, or do you think it will just hamper progress? Sure.
Okay. For any goal in general, you need a target. But you have to work with that target very strategically, because at a certain point, the target will begin to diminish if you overwork it. For example, in the corporate world, you often see now that men are being falsely accused, even in terms of, internationally rather than here. So you have to be very, you need to be goal-oriented, but you have to know where there's an equilibrium until it begins to slope.
Thank you.
I am a believer in quotas because people don't like to change. It's human nature to resist change, and quotas force change to happen. And, whether it is for racial diversity or gender diversity or disability diversity, I do believe that that is a very significant way for people to step back and examine, like your organization has done, and saying, are we doing as much as we can in these areas? So I am a believer in quota because it forces behavior change.
But along with the quotas, we must have education, and we must have the support that will support the quotas, so that at some point in time, we can do away with the quotas and it will just happen naturally.
Exactly.
And I think as well, we can't lose meritocracy, because I think as females, nobody wants to be promoted because someone had a target to achieve. We want to be promoted on merit because we were the best candidate for that role. But I agree in setting goals, measuring performance, making sure are we getting there and are we removing impediments to greater gender equity, I think is important.
Yes.
So great. Shamla, I wanted to get your perspective as well on how do we inculcate this culture of gender parity, but more broadly, inclusivity in our youth. And it kind of goes back again to the education system, but in the young people in today's society, how do we inculcate a culture that's more inclusive?
Okay, so with respect to youth, I think youth now has a voice, but what they're saying being implemented, that is the main concern. Because yet oftentimes you hear youth in parliament, youth caucus, youth groups, etc. But are they being taken seriously? So yes, youths are there, but we need to take them seriously. With respect to different groups, I think that, as I mentioned in the beginning, the corporate world, especially the private sector, needs to come forward and start to push an inclusive policy and say, okay, as we mentioned before, to set a target and said, you know what, in 2 years' time, I want to be able to hire a person with a disability. And what about, things like person sexuality in terms of gender? There are men who coming out and saying, I am openly gay. How do they deal with this in the corporate world? So we have to be forward thinking, and obviously we know that if the government, sorry to say, wanted to do it in terms of pushing legislation, they would have. So you, as the private sector, have to push it and say, you know what, we want this, and force them now to, and let it trickle down into the educational sector, etc.
Shamla, I think you're saying it, it starts with corporations. It starts with each one of us understanding, do we have the right policies within our own organizations that encourage more inclusivity, and that we're being more deliberate about it, because sometimes it's not going to happen on its own. Like any change or anything else, you need to be more deliberate in how we think about that and encourage.
Yeah, well, it's supposed to be a bottom-up approach, but we have to try the top-down approach now and see if it works.
Well, I just want to say that I think the policies are important. You have the targets, but it's what we do every day to make changes. It's, you don't have to have policies to do the right thing. And we have, for example, we've implemented now, it's something small, but it's a small change, but it's a big change, whereby every time we're having an interview panel now, we have to make sure there's two. It used to be one woman, so we had 4 panelists. It was always one woman from HR and then 3 men, right? Or maybe 4 men if it was a bigger panel. Now we have to make sure there's gender representation on the panel, but not only gender representation either. So because we're talking, I agree with you, right? It's all about inclusion. It's about diversity. And so we'd also make sure that one of those people is from outside of the area, right? So that we have a diversity of thought around who we're selecting as the next leader in a particular area.
I think companies have to want inclusion. They have to understand the benefits that could come from inclusion. They have to write inclusion practices into their strat plans and implement it, and they have to budget for it also, because you can write it in and it's just there and you don't work on it. And in working on it, you are setting the example that will trickle down right through the rest of the company.
Thank you. So we're going to change gears a little bit because we want to get some of the questions in from the audience. And I know a lot of women struggle with this question in particular. So, and I think, Susie, you're probably best placed to answer that. What advice do you have for new mothers or mothers with young children who still want to excel at their careers while being a great mom?
A question I've answered many times. And I think it kind of goes back to what I spoke about a little bit ago, which is you will be working for a long time. And it is the path to leadership is not this. It is this, right? And so it is perfectly acceptable to think about a period of your time in your career where you can do a balance like I chose to do, where I chose to be a consultant for 10 years, an independent consultant, which allowed me to, for instance, take the summers off so that when my children were not in school over the summer, I could spend the time with them. Would I maybe be further ahead or more of a COO or CEO today if I didn't do that? Maybe. Would I be as happy as I am today? Probably not. Because I know that I had the opportunity to be involved with my children's lives in the time period that it made sense. Now, I was lucky. I had a husband who was working full-time, and not every woman has that opportunity. And so I do appreciate that. But the message that I do want to stress is that you will be working, if you're career-oriented, you will be working 30, 40, 50 years perhaps. And it is perfectly fine when you think about it in that time span to think about what makes sense to allow you to engage. What I have told women who still desire to stay home full time while their children are young is to do the networking, find a passion project, be involved with a women's leadership program, be involved with a program that has to do with your career focus, and still take time, maybe a couple times a week or a couple times a month, to go to those types of events. Because as we all know, many of us get opportunities based on our relationships. And if you can maintain those relationships while you're raising your children, it makes it easier for you to move back into the career that you want when you've decided that it's time to do that.
You're right. I think it's all about personal choice and how you balance your commitments to work and your commitments to building a family. And a lot of times when we're raising kids or have young kids, we tend to just take the foot off the gas a bit. And sort of feel guilty and like, I'm not sure about this career thing because I have all the, my kids that I want to focus on. But sometimes it's just keep the foot on the gas, we'll figure it out. As women, sometimes we over-science, over-plan, overthink. We need to have everything lined up. But it's just keep your foot on the gas and keep going if that's your choice. And if it's your choice to say, I really want to invest the time and be a full-time mom, that's great. That's fine too. So we have, let's see what else. Presentations are empowering, but falls on deaf ears if you have a room of women only. So market to all so that men can hear, view, and respect women in leadership. And this is a great point, and I think one that we've been discussing at the chamber a lot, to say how do we get more men in the conversation, because as we've heard before, gender equality is not a woman's issue, it's a business issue. And the only way we're going to change gender issues if we have all genders in the conversation. So, point well taken. I don't know if we can refresh questions if we have anything else coming in. Okay, let's see. Okay. How do you get a female... Oops, it's gone. Okay, I'll go back to my questions then. Great. So we said balance for better, and we spoke a lot about balance. But what is this better that we're trying to achieve? So describe what better means to you, and what are some of the ways that you are trying to make a difference in your own personal sphere of influence, because we all have places that we can influence. So Thora, I don't know if I can ask you, what does better mean for you, and what are you doing in the institutions that you're involved in to strive for better?
For me, better just means improvement. Improving on what you already do. You might be doing something good, as we say, there's always room for improvement. At YTEP, if I can just go there, we have 2 young women who are who are finding it difficult to balance their work life. And we are now experimenting with flexi time. So it's for the first time we are trying to do that. This for us is making it better, because that was unheard of before. funny enough, we're getting some pushback for it. When I say we, the board is getting some pushback for it. Because other members of staff are one. So why them? But we feel if we can do this, we are going to make the company better because they are now going to be able to give their all. They are going to be in a better frame of mind to, do the work of the company, do what we're asking them to do. Because if you don't have happy employees, then it's all to naught.
Sort of Stephen's earlier point that, you start with the small things, right?
Yes.
And build from there.
Mhm.
So a small thing is just creating a little more flexibility that allows women to continue to contribute to the organization.
That's right.
Is a good starting point. So Shamla, I'm coming to you next. So what does better mean for you, and how are you advocating for that in your own personal space?
Well, as Tora said, better means constantly improving, constantly progressing. And once you aim for that, that has been better and better at what you do. In my own space, well, if someone asks me now, what do you do? I necessarily tell them I don't know, because I'm very multidimensional. Because right now I'm studying agribusiness. I'm pursuing my PhD in agricultural economics, specializing in marketing. I am a social inclusion consultant because we see in our current society there's no inclusion, and I use that through my experience, and I have been in different platforms, and to tell you the truth from experience, people still don't see my value because they oftentimes in the corporate world, social, no matter what, I come in and they don't see me as, okay, a business entity walking in while rolling in chutney. And I offer my advice, etc. And they say, okay, thank you, but they don't see that I have to live too. And I have reached so far and still feel alienated in some right. And I could tell you the reason why I am doing my PhD is not because I won the accolade of having doctor by my name, but just to get respect. And when I approach someone and say, Dr. Shamla Maharaj, they will give me the respect that I deserve and my worth.
So Shamla, I think, you are bringing a voice to social inclusion, and I think that is the real powerful role that you're playing in that space in your own
And
way.
I am actually learning, by force, to experience what social inclusion is. As I said, my background isn't, social and etc. So I am learning that one side apart from my study. So yeah.
So I think we just want to
Can I just
recognize
say,
you for the work that you are
I'm just
doing.
getting to know, I just met you today, Shamla, and you don't need a PhD to get respect.
Yes.
5 minutes with you and you've earned your respect from everybody here.
So we have some questions back up. And this is, I think, for me too, a very relevant one. What advice can be given to women in heavily male-dominated environments, particularly senior management, to break through and have capable persons at the helm? So sometimes in industries that are very heavily male-dominated, it's harder to sort of make your way to that C-suite. Any advice we can give? Maybe Stephen, what have you seen work?
I'm very proud to say that in Scotiabank, 58% of our senior managers plus are women. Yes, thank you. Here in Trinidad and Tobago. That said, 78% of our workers' population is women. So, the reality is, even though I've come from a lot of Latin American countries where I can tell you that number is well below 30, I still feel we still have a lot of work to do here in Trinidad and Tobago, and that we don't want to keep the tension off, and we have to, as leaders, regardless of men and women, have to help women to take risks with their career and support them. Support them on their flex time if they need it for a time, and not be concerned about their careers that they're not going to be able to advance. I think this is where we need to all, and it's, whether we say it's it's not a women's issue, it's a business issue, but it's more than that. I think and that's why more men should get involved. It's a society issue, right? We want the best talent. We all win when the best talent is in the best positions in leadership anywhere, in companies, government, business, anywhere.
Susie, anything you wanted to add on that?
Yeah, very much what Stephen said. As I mentioned earlier, I've been in tech. Tech is a heavily white male-dominated environment. There's not a lot of diversity in tech. And I think that if I look back on my own career, some of the things that helped me is, first, I really love tech. I'm a nerd at heart, right? And so I could be able to relate with my coworkers because we had a shared passion for the type of work that we did. And I think that was a big plus. Second, I was very competent in tech, right? I started my career as a programmer. I was very able to speak with and later manage large teams. I managed over 100 software programmers at one point in my career. And I was able to do that because I was a software programmer at one point in my career also. And so where I have seen success is when men and women can find areas of commonality, where they can find a shared passion, be it a career, maybe it's something outside of work. They like bowling or something like that, or they love to talk about their families. Because then what you do is then you become humans. Then you're not men and women, you're humans. And so I think that is very important, is to find those areas where we're common and emphasize those. And those will be what are remembered when people are considering you for career opportunities.
I mean, I think I could talk a little bit personally as well, working in a very male-dominated industry in the energy sector, that you have to find your allies. Yes. You need to build your allies, whether those are male or female allies. And for the females who are in the industry, you have to use your positions of influence to create and to break that change. So as you climb that corporate ladder, it is about how do you help others behind you. And as you progress, it is about how do you communicate and engage and advocate with your male counterparts, because a lot of this is just unconscious bias. Everyone comes to work every day to do a great job and to want to see your team succeed and others come through. But sometimes they're not consciously aware of some of those biases that may exist, and they may be blocking more females from progressing. So I think it is about communicating and really advocating and pulling others along. Yeah. So my little timer thing is not working. How are we doing for time? Wrap up. One more question. Wrap up. What do you say to men who believe that women are too emotional to be leaders due to the fact that they believe we make decisions emotionally?
You're looking at me.
Yeah. So first of all, do you believe women are too emotional and I guess to be rational decision makers?
I believe I'm emotional. I think, we all bring our passion to work. And it's that diversity, again, going back to diversity of thought that you want to have at the table when you're there trying to make decisions that are strategic for the company.
Any other thoughts? Susie?
I think I'll be very direct. There's another question about directness. I think men use that as an excuse, and it is not a valid excuse. We're human first, right? There are things that will make us emotional, and there are things that will make us strong, and most of them are more common than they are different.
And that's the balance.
Yes, and that's the balance. You're exactly right.
And I think there are thoughts that say the emotional intelligence is, I guess, the element
Has
that
value.
will stand us apart from the rest. Particularly as we move into more of this digital world, emotional intelligence becomes a lot more important.
Exactly. Yes, and certainly women and men process things differently, based mostly on their upbringing, somewhat on their DNA. But I don't think women are necessarily more emotional than men. They're just different emotional than men.
They demonstrate differently.
So it's been a great conversation. Any closing comments or any final thoughts you wanted to leave with the audience today?
Well, I said that the better was improvement, and just something ran through my mind. On the other hat that I wear as the chairman of Tuco Junior Calypso Committee, we committed to improving the quality of calypsos in our country. And I'm very proud to say that we have done that with all our young persons, so that if you all would have seen the Junior Calypso competition over the years, you would see that we have improved. So we have bettered the quality of calypsos.
And I would just add very much what you're saying is that all of us in this room have the power to be able to improve conditions for folks that are, have challenges or are not, are women, are disabled, are different races, are different religions. We all have the power in this room, and we should take advantage of that power in order to create an environment where we're all treated as humans first.
I guess from my sort of closing thoughts would be, one, I just want to say something, what I was feeling. When Susie mentioned in her speech about 1974 and women being able to open up accounts without a man signing on or get a mortgage, I was appalled and ashamed. It was just hard to hear something like that. I am proud that Scotiabank in 1961 hired the first female branch manager in Canada. 1961, and there's a great video. It's amazing how she was expressing her role, and people coming in and men saying, "Well, I want to talk to the manager." "No, I am the manager." No, really, I want to talk to the manager." "No, but I am the manager." And those are the kind of things she had to deal with back in 1961. So I think there's been a lot of progress. It's a great time to be a woman. There's empowerment. I now think about Trinidad and Tobago, and I have a lot of hope for Trinidad and Tobago. I see a lot of similarities with Canada in terms of our multiculturalism. Like, multiculturalism is in itself, inclusion and diversity. It's about not just tolerating people from other races and other backgrounds, but really celebrating the differences. And so I'm really hopeful for Trinidad and Tobago, because I think that multiculturalism you have here can be a strong basis to do a lot more and advance a lot more in diversity and inclusion.
Shamla.
Yes, and my closing remarks is the consumer ultimately dictates what a business does, profit. And the consumer now is very relatable to what is going on and what is real, because most of them through social media are coming up and not empathizing, but I'm one with people's story. And if you work with being socially inclusive and a diverse sector, those consumers would ultimately be attracted towards you, and it will help in your return on investment.
So let's put our hands together for our panelists to thank them. And thank you, audience, for your many questions. We are not losing them, so we may have opportunities throughout the rest of today's agenda to address some of those questions. And I'm going to hand you back over to JW so he can wrap this morning's sessions. Thank you.
Thank you. I enjoyed it.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I'll just invite Nirad for a few to address any questions concerning the AMCHAM side of things.
Sorry, guys. I know y'all are. I'm between y'all and lunch, but someone asked a question that got a lot of likes about what AMCHAM does beyond this. So we started this 6 years ago, as Patricia said, and it was a kind of networking, soft event. We've turned it, we think, into a real business event that happens to be about women's leadership. We do the women's leadership and mentorship. So out of this, one of the sets of feedback that we got as the feedback forms on your table are there, is that we need to have a mentorship program. We need support for women in business. So we're working with the IDB. 2 years ago we created that. The last one was small. Last year we had 7. This year we have 21 people, and we hope that mentees, and we hope that would grow as time goes on. We speak about this at our board regularly, and the need for inclusion, and we do things about it. So we can't determine who gets elected to the board, but what we can do is encourage people to run. And so by encouraging women in leadership to run, capable, competent women, as Patricia said, we expect to be just under parity, and just under parity is 1 less. So we'll be 7 of 16 we expect after the next AGM, and that's if you look at the other boards of other chambers, of other companies, that's walking the talk. Okay? Ms. Bess spoke about schools and supporting young people. Ms. Bess, I'm very disappointed in you, because you are the one who allowed us to go into the Russell Latapy High School and got the approval from the ministry for us to do that, and we've been spending time in the Russell Latapy High School with the girls and the boys. And by spending time, I mean we go in there with the students. We try to do it on a weekly basis, but like Carnival didn't allow for 2 weeks. And we're doing that, and my colleague Melissa Pear, who's at the back of the room, pretending that I'm not calling her name, sits now on the Russell Latapy High School board to help them design their school development plan. And many members have helped with that. Nicole Galt is here. She has gone with us. Siraj Gajada from Syntegra and others, Prestige Holdings, has provided meals. And so what we're trying to do is be a nexus to provide the support for the school as they go. And Melissa and I have made a personal commitment to the Form 1s to stick with them through Form 5. And we're hoping that we'll get more people to stick with the next group of Form 1s in September, and so on and so forth, so that we can be with the whole school. Yesterday, our security committee went to the St. James Police Youth Club, and they're going to continue to work with that. We have had an ongoing relationship, and we're going to continue to work with that. Patricia spoke about the fact that we are going to speak always openly and earnestly about issues of fairness. We have said clearly it's not a women's leadership issue, but it is a gender issue, where we stand on the issue of inclusion for people in the LGBTQI community. And we are unapologetic that discrimination should not exist in Trinidad and Tobago as far as we're concerned, and the Equal Opportunities Act should be amended to include a restriction on discrimination against people based on their sexual orientation or gender identification. And we're not going to apologize for things like that. And you would have seen the things that we would have said on Venezuelan migrants. We know that it's controversial, but there are gender implications for things like that, because the people who are most vulnerable in such a situation are women and children when you have to flee your home. So there is a gender implication for some of the social positions that we take. So to the person who asked the question about what does AMCHAM TNT do besides have a nice event like this, those are some of the things that we are doing, and we actively seek to encourage women to take leadership positions in AMCHAM and support them in leadership positions in some of the other things that we are involved in. So, Jay, thank you.
Thank you, Nirad. Of course, if you don't know, now you know. Now you know. Thank you, of course, our CEO.
So we told you that by going to the app, slido.com, all of your answers were provided. So continue to ask questions, and we will have another panel coming up after lunch.
That's right. I want to thank Giselle for a really smooth transition there in terms of the panel. Well done. Of course, we also thank Susie for her wisdom. Yes. Let me also acknowledge Stephen. I love the way you really, you negotiate the emotion question real smooth, brother. That was smooth. Well played. Man brought it on himself, you know what? I'm emotional. Yeah, I love it. Took some notes there. Well played. Shamla, the raw honesty, we thank you so much for that. Let's again show Shamla some love. That was truly touching to me.
and a moment
Yes.
that will remain with us even after this event is over. Thank you, Shamla.
And of course, to Tora with her experience, thank you as always. So that's it there for the first half. We actually have two more things very important
We
to
know
bring
you're
forward.
hungry, but we just have a couple, well, how many items? Maybe about one or two
Just one.
before lunch. So we could hold on a little bit, right?
Just a very big announcement, actually, and we're going to bring forward our friend from AMCHAM, Administrative Coordinator, Brianne, to give us some great news concerning an initiative that's coming up very soon.
Thank you, Priyan.
Thank you. Morning, everyone. Just for a little bit of a change of pace, I'm coming to talk a little bit about what AMCHAM TNT is doing on the issue of tech. So you hear the statistic all the time, 88% of Fortune 500 companies from 1955 no longer in the Fortune 500. We take tech very seriously, and like the minister said, the fourth industrial revolution isn't coming, it's here. At the end of 2017, we launched our Digital Transformation Committee. We have a series of tech talks this year. The first one actually is with Susie on Monday. And we also have our first annual tech conference coming up. So we've got a little video. So Stephen, let's show them what we've got. Thank you.
So that's it. Very, very interesting. Kudos there to the AMCHAM team.
All right. So we know you're hungry because Jason is also hungry. He's been letting me know that. So we are getting ready for lunch, but please remember that our lunch break ends at 12:50 p.m. And as well, when you're having your lunch, remember afterwards to head on down to the YouShare booth. Go take your pictures, upload them to social media, use the hashtags Balance for Better, tag AMCHAM Trinidad and Tobago, and also Slido.com.
Of course, very important for the various partners with us. Of course, the BP area, you can go touch base with their staff members. They actually are rocking the green scarves, and you can get your phones charged in the cell phone tower. Our friends from Sagicor are here with us. Across by the Scotia booth, you can actually go on camera and let us know what Balance for Better means to you, and you can get some amazing prizes from the Southern Sales team.
Yes, Southern Sales is here as well, where one lucky guest can have the opportunity to win a complimentary car and driver service.
So now we invite our sponsor tables and our reserve tables to head to lunch, and after that we will go table 1 to 4, then 5 to 9, and well, after that is the whole thing open up wide, you know. People sometimes don't hear after that particular part of it, but we're going to invite our reserve tables and our sponsor tables to head across to lunch immediately, and then we go with tables 1 to 4 and then 5 to 9. Bon appetit, lunch is served, and we'll see you on the other side for the second half of today's amazing conference.